And we're live from New York. It's Saturday night.
God, I wish I would be excited to stay up late tonight.
Dude, New York is fucking great.
You know, I've never been in New York, despite the fact that my whole family is gone. I just didn't go to the trip.
Shit, I love New York.
We're not actually live from New York. We're live from multiple places in Texas, which is cool too, I guess. And it's not.
We're also not live.
Also, a lot more room in Texas than in New York, I will say.
So everything I said was wrong.
Pretty much.
Also, a lot less COVID in Texas than in New York.
Yeah, you know what?
I thought Houston was like, or Austin, one of the two was like a pretty hopping place for COVID.
Yeah, you're right. Never mind. I take that back. A lot more filled than New York because we're not doing anything to stop it.
I feel like I have for channel upkeeping news. We're back to 2 strikes because Shueisha decided to attack our recent One Piece video.
Fake Shueisha.
So
no,
we contested it. Hopefully it'll be back online because it's our chapter 1000 video. So I definitely want to. And it had a great thumbnail, so I hope we get that back soon.
Work by Tuna Tina.
For the meantime, definitely
we got Jujutsu out.
Yeah, Jujutsu's out. It's doing well for us.
I mean,
and definitely no manga panels in any video I edit over the weekend.
Yeah,
so you get to go back to the old days, where it was just our voices. Maybe we should do live chat sometime with our faces, but Bradley's shy.
What if instead of manga panels, we painted what the in Microsoft Paint, we paint what the panel looks like.
Oh god.
Show it that.
Okay, if you want to put in extra work for something.
Yeah, fuck
do it live.
I could. We'll do it live.
Yeah.
As if our talks weren't long enough. Joe,
it just makes stick figures and stuff. It doesn't have to be detailed.
Joe, how about you shut the heck up and tell me about your week or weeks?
No, week's been pretty good. I'll be talking about Factorio and Hitman, which I've been playing a lot of. I played a little bit of Paladins with Tyler this past week. That game's kind of neat. It's got some good it's got some I think unique character designs and not designs but character mechanics to them. There was a girl that she throws out these orbs and then she stacks them on people and you can press a button and you make the orbs explode and you get healed from them and you deal damage to the people that you stack them on, and she's a healer. So I think it's just a really cool mechanic system. I feel like though if you don't literally get every class in there, you feel something lacking. If you don't have any flankers or damage dealers, you don't deal enough damage. If you don't have a tank, everyone just dies. If you don't have a healer, everyone just dies. It's really frustrating when you try to solo queue.
Everyone just dies if you breathe.
Yeah, it's just I like playing with Tyler and our friend Trevor. It was a lot of fun because we were coordinate a little bit more. It's it's a little bit more mechanic. Its characters.
It's a little bit more what? You cut out there.
Oh, it's more character mechanic focus. The characters are a lot more complicated than Overwatch characters.
They're a lot more interesting too visually.
Yeah. Everyone has a passive.
Tyler has a real bone to pick with Overwatch's character designs.
Not really. I think that's the direction they went in, but I think I thought Paladins was nice. It gives you 3 different ways to play each character, 3 to 4 different ways to play each character. But then on top of that, they have a pretty simple item buying system in game during match that adds a good healthy amount of complexity to it. Plus, I like the fact of you choose your character, you choose your team, and switching characters mid match is not a part of the meta, which I find that pretty infuriating part of Overwatch.
We're talking about League of Legends style item buying?
Kind of.
A little bit,
really.
Yeah.
There are items that are there's an item that will reduce the healing someone receives when you hit them, or it deals more damage to shields, but it's nothing complicated it
doesn't give you base stats or anything.
Well,
it just
gives you
does
the actives, which is the part that should matter IMO.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it does.
Yeah. That's really it. But it does. But once I said before, when you're playing with idiots that don't understand that you can buy things, you really feel it late game when no one on your team.
I am one of those idiots, and there's a great mechanic in the game.
Yeah.
that it's called auto buy, and it just auto buys you what like is good on that character. Seems to work out just fine. I never really noticed it. I couldn't understand what was going on.
I mean, I actually read, so I did. So
I just can't believe Joe played it for one night and is already calling people idiots.
I mean, it's pretty obvious. You're like, you literally don't have items, and we're 20 minutes into this match. You are just running out there. None of y'all picked a tank when I locked in support first. I am not to blame for this.
There is an auto buy feature, like, and it's on by default.
Yeah, so that guy had to purposely turn it off to do that. I like having it off just so I can choose what I build, because like I might want to get cauterized if they're doing a lot of healing.
I don't have time or care to learn about metas.
I don't care. I just read the rules.
My exposure to paladins was back when I used to watch a shitload of Alpha Red on YouTube. Like, it initially started out as like, hey guys, look at this Overwatch knockoff. And then like over the course of a few videos, it turned into like, ironically, like this better than Overwatch. And then he just started playing that instead.
It made me miss Overwatch, but like, I think there's just some actually interesting characters in that game compared to Overwatch.
I really like that one character you sent me pictures of.
The witch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only problem is the game is first person, so I can't look at her while I'm playing.
That is true. Tyler, who are you waving at?
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
But Tyler, you should tell us about what you've been up to aside from your big topics.
Man, I watched like 5 different animes, and like the last time we talked,
we're gonna have an anime power hour for Tyler here in a little bit.
I caught up on 2020s, which was like Jujutsu Kaisen and God of High School. I think those were like 2 really big ones. Jujutsu Kaisen, it's interesting. It didn't really allure me. Like, nothing about it stood out, and I was just like,
I really liked the first episode of Jujutsu Kaisen.
I don't hate it or anything. Like, it's a very good anime. I think it's very well animated. The characters are nice and interesting. It's a good plot. It's just, I don't know, nothing just drug me in that's like, oh, this is the next anime. Like, I enjoyed watching it. But had I been reading this as a manga, I don't think I would have continued reading it. I would have been like, okay, I don't really care anymore.
Yeah, the animation is really good.
But then I watched God of High School, which is a Crunchyroll made anime. I think it was, but I don't really remember.
I think so, yeah. Like, it was a webtoon.
But it's like a webtoon first.
Yeah.
So it very much had like Tower of God feels when it came to like story pacing, where there's like 2 different plot points going on simultaneously, and one is like really overpowered. One is like your main character who's also overpowered, but he doesn't know he's overpowered, and like there's no foreshadowing in this pacing really. And just things like anything can happen. So it's a little bit fresh in that sense, where you'll be watching an episode, there's no foreshadowing and you're not expecting it. So it's just like, oh, what the fuck? Didn't see that coming. Of course you didn't. You had no foreshadowing in this story.
It just happens.
Yeah, shit just happens. Like, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is a brain dead, turn off your brain anime experience.
That's where people come in and like, actually, Tyler, you missed this little detail. Though I don't get the vibe it's that kind of series.
I miss probably thousands of details because I'm watching anime and I gotta read it because I can't speak Japanese. And you know what? I'll take that blame.
A lot of webtoons, because you're gonna talk about Sweet Home, which is also a webtoon, which I've read the first chapter of, because I heard the Netflix show is not as good as the.
Yeah. I finished Is It Wrong to Try and Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon 3. I'm still liking this series. It has not died out for me. I really like the way that the gods are tricky. And then I like our main character still because he's not as annoying as Kirito in this. It is not an isekai. That is just the world they live in.
Not a kai.
Not a kai.
Not a kai.
Okay, so it's just a generic fantasy setting. Got it.
Yeah.
As opposed to isekai generic.
But the isekai I did watch was I'm Standing on a Million Lives, which has a very Persona-like storyline where our main character is the 3rd person to join the party instead of the 1st person in the party. And so like there's these two girls in his class, and then they all get transported magically to the other world, and they just are given this quest. And it's like a very basic quest. It's like help the town leader, or like take the chief's village chief's request. And it's like very vague, like doesn't really give him a lot of like description or anything. But there have been two quests prior. Like they can't leave the world until they complete this quest, and then they go back to their normal world. And it's got some nice little isekai like things in it where they can't die, like they get revived after like 30 or 40 seconds. They have an inventory, but here's the thing: if they get a party wipe, they do die.
Okay.
So there's that, and then like if they get eaten, they don't revive because they're in like a place where they're not safe, and they would just die again instantly. So that counts as a death.
Okay, that's kind of interesting.
Like someone gets killed in a snowstorm, and so they're like, "Oh, you're just gonna die again." Like, so you're dead. Like you're not gonna revive. I thought that was pretty neat. The main thing that allures me to the show is like the game master character, which is like this NPC who's bringing them into the other world. You don't really know why they're doing it. They just say they're from the future. They're kind of quirky, and they're kind of an asshole too. And I really like, I like the game master. That is the character that allures me to the show. The thing that makes me really hate the show, and even if they do make a second season, I might be is I hate the main character so much. He is one of the worst isekai characters I've ever seen. He is, I'm 14 and this is deep. He's like, I don't really care what happens to people, but I know that's bad. But that makes me less bad for knowing that. So what do I really am? And the game master's just sitting back there like, bitch, blank face, just like, what is this guy on about? Like, who the fuck picked this guy? It's like the game master keeps asking. He's like, dude, what is your opinion about humans? Like, are you okay? Like, you gonna go on a shooting spree there, buddy? But he's in Japan, not America, so he's good.
Yeah,
we'll see. I would even rate it below. What's the incest isekai? No game, no life.
You're gonna have to be more specific, bro.
Do you like your mom?
No game, no life. Pretty good. It's high up there on the isekai list.
It's also high up there in the incest list. So,
and then I watched a anime movie, Ride Your Wave. Kelly made me watch it, and I ended up actually pretty enjoying it. Enjoyed it quite a bit. It is a love story that I was not expecting to like. Cool. I don't want to spoil too much about the movie, so I won't go into that many details. But Netflix? It's on HBO.
Okay.
But it is a love story focused around a female character who goes on to discover herself in her mid to late 20s and what she wants to do with her life. Because some people hit that point in their life and they don't know, you know?
Topical stories. All right, that's enough out of you, anime boy. Bradley, Bradley, what minor things are going on in your life?
So, for once, I played a game that is not Genshin Impact.
Wait, save that for later. That can be its own thing, because I can talk about that too.
That's what I've been doing with my life, so there you go.
All right, skipping over. Actually, Bradley, why don't you tell me how you're liking Attack on Titan Season 3 so far?
Oh, yeah.
So, Attack on Titan Season 3 is better than the 2 seasons that came before it.
Hell yeah, it is.
These are just facts I hear.
In general, so far the series coasts at like 3 out of 5, but every 1 or 2 episodes has like an objective 5 out of 5 moment. You have to be like, okay, that's pretty cool.
Bradley,
what's up?
Objectively, this show rates higher on IMDb than Breaking Bad. How does that make you feel?
Well, I mean, nerds find ways to game the system, so
yeah,
as we know this past week.
It's exactly like GameStop.
It is no longer pandemic season. It is GameStop season.
That's true.
All I'm saying is every fucking episode of Breaking Bad, start to finish, is 5 out of 5.
That's just facts. Except that one, I don't like episode 5. It's only a 4 out of 5.
Episode 5 of what season? Just in general?
Five total.
Okay.
It's just early on. They haven't hit their stride quite yet.
Got it.
You were saying that like a problem you have with it is the dialogue, which I can actually.
Yeah, the dialogue. Whenever it's not like one of the big plot conversations where stuff is being like revealed or people are making power plays, like most of just the in between dialogue, I feel like you can predict people's sentences 2 or 3 in advance because it feels like generic anime placeholder dialogue.
Really, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, they do. They have a lot. I feel like season 3 and 2 of that generic anime. I think the currency of a season Attack on Titan doesn't have that nearly as much.
That's because every conversation so far has been power play conversation.
It's true. Like 2 episodes ago, that was a power play conversation.
Oh yeah,
that was oof.
Stand up.
I think it's really upsetting. I think Bradley's opinion will change, but like I think he said he didn't like Reiner, but like Reiner is probably one of my favorite characters on the entire show.
It's not that I dislike him. I like. There's just only 2 characters that
you really like.
I'm sitting here like I care about them and what happens to them.
Yeah, that's fair.
I feel like the arc that I love won't hit you as much because it mainly focuses on 2 characters that aren't Kenny, who's dead, or
because I know there was the 2 episodes that's like the backstory of Krista and other girl who turns into a Titan. And I felt like it wasn't hitting for me. And then you were like, oh, well, the next episode is like their flashback backstory. And I was like, no, that's the one I just watched.
I mean, I like Krista in season 3 when she actually when she has to make the choice between the easy path with her dad and entrusting Eren with the power of the founding Titan. I thought that was good. She became the worst girl ever.
I feel like that episode wasn't as cool for me as it seems to be for other people. And I think mostly the reason is it's not common to ask for slower pacing in anime, I feel like, but I feel like that didn't hit me very much because it feels like we just didn't build up to it. It's like all the stuff that she rejected is stuff I just found out about that episode.
Yeah.
So like,
well, it was more. What makes that episode great is Eren's part in it, where he's like,
yeah, no, Eren was great.
Eren thought like, oh, I have this power, so I can be the special one, and then he finds out, oh wait, me having this power is objectively bad and a worse path for humanity. Just kill me already.
Eren's portion of the episode was great. For Krista, it was like her decision might have hit me harder if I had already been led to believe that she was going to make the decision to, inject herself. But it's like, I don't know. She just found out about all this stuff like 5 minutes ago. And
I think,
so either decision seemed just as likely to me. So I wasn't really shocked with whichever one she picked.
That moment to me was like the point where it's like, oh, Eren's actually developing to become a good, decent character for me.
For me,
Eren started turning good there.
For me, like the moment I realized I don't hate Eren anymore was in season 2, where they're like, Eren, don't chase, come to the wall. And then like he actually listens to his teammates, and that I think it's all been uphill for him.
Yeah,
since then.
Because like one of my favorite moments in the show has been in one of the more recent episodes I watched, where they're trying to retake Walmaria, and Eren like swaps from "I'm special" to "We're special," and I was like, you know what, I like that.
Another cool thing I like in that ice cavern location is the build up to like all the survey corps actually having to take lives, because I felt like that was around episode 6 of this season, so that's been building up since the first episode of the season, and I thought they did that pretty well, where they have that scene where they're just murking people with the gas barrels, and Sasha's got her bow and arrow.
Now Kenny is just perfect. I think he's great. I love his motivation, where it's like all he's ever known is like this lens of the world through violence and, the strongest or the most powerful, stuff like that. And so he's just baffled that, the king can be like preaching about like love and kindness and stuff. And he's like, I want what you're on.
Yeah, that line of like, could I see the world through his eyes if I had?
Yeah, he's like, the world is so grim for me. He's like, if it's possible for me to see the world the way you do, I need that.
The real standout part of Kenny is the line that is very relevant in the final arc, where like everyone is drunk on something, and has to chase something right before he bites it. I
love Kenny.
Man, I feel the same way as Bradley did about Krista and like the underground crystal cave. I was just like, we just met this character, and I even watched it like week to week
last season
at that moment, you know. And so like even when it was slowed down in real life for me, I was just like, I have no sentiment towards this character because I didn't.
As with everything, it's better the second time around.
Oh, absolutely.
As with everything in Attack on Titan, not everything is that way.
Oh, yeah.
I do think on the first watch, though, that's the weakest plotline of that season.
Oh, because the second part of that season is gone.
Oh, yeah.
So, that is where I was like, oh, Attack on Titan went from being good to being top 5 is the arc Bradley starting.
Yeah, it's just strange because, you know, Attack on Titan has a really, really good mystery setup. And in it, like, a good mystery ideally would be just as good or better the second time around.
Yeah.
My problem is I feel like a lot of Attack on Titan is only good the second time around.
Possibly. I feel like but I mean it's hype. I think the slow parts are better the second time around, but I think that like there's parts that are always good the first time.
The animation's always good.
I think at this point I cared about the characters more than you do. At least the main one, because at this point I'm like, okay, I know who the main characters finally are at like as of season 2.5.
I think that's season 1's problem is that you don't know who to care for a long time. Yeah. And then by halfway through season 2, you kind of realize like, oh, this is our party. And then you have someone to care for at that point. You kind of have to reset.
And handed me the first volume of Attack on Titan, and I read 20 pages of it. And I was like, Willer, how the fuck did you dare disgrace yourself and read it?
His art got way better.
I'm just saying, even the pacing, I'm just like, I'm a fast reader. So I'm just like,
you watched the episode 2 weeks ago, right? How are you containing yourself? Like, that's my question.
What do you mean?
You guys are Buddhist monks not reading ahead with how hyped the shit going on right now is.
Been 2 years, man.
I am a practitioner of patience, have been for a long time.
You are. That is one of like your defining positive traits is like you're actually really patient.
Yeah.
When it comes to this
I think what was it? There was some. I think I did have to start reading One Piece. I did just like start grinding that out. I was like, okay, fuck this.
Well, we also egged you on because we told you the anime was shit and you should stop watching it.
No, I told him.
Then it turns out Wano was like one of the best like One Piece arcs.
I've been telling him the anime is shitty since he started, Joe, and that's not it. He saw us doing a podcast and he wanted to be part of the fun.
I had to catch back up. I had to prove myself and not be special guest anymore.
Man, that was so long ago.
That was so long ago. That's almost 2 years ago.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
What was I going to say?
For my week, I was just going to talk about Attack on Titan Season 4, because the last 2 episodes were really good, especially that one scene with the music and the boy doing the thing in the boat. You know the scene.
Yeah.
Yo, man, I saw that. I came a little. Not gonna lie.
I think we had a discussion really early on in the podcast whether or not endings can make or break shows. But like we've had the discussion a few times, and I think that's Attack on Titan's biggest problem, biggest strength is that the author had a very clear idea of what he wanted to do from the beginning, but it takes a lot to get there.
So I'm caught up with the manga. I don't know if I said this on the podcast. We have 2 chapters left. Mm-hmm. We're all kind of antsy right now.
Really?
It could go a lot of directions, and it's gonna be divisive no matter where it goes.
Yo,
which is very fitting. Like the core strength of the overall story of Attack on Titan is duality of a conflict, basically. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's really fitting that at the end of the story, I feel like people are going to be really split on the decisions.
I think That's good.
Yeah.
Man, I liked the ending of Mass Effect 3. I think I'll be good. I think I'll be able to survive.
I think you'll be fine. I was satisfied with Mass Effect 3's ending, so I'll be probably okay.
Wow, we just lost a lot of cred, y'all. Like,
no,
I
think Mass Effect 3 had a great ending to a great space opera trilogy.
Okay, but don't you feel like it didn't honor your choices by only giving you 2 choices in the end?
It gave you 3.
If that's how people felt, then they very much missed the entire theme of Mass Effect.
I don't know anything. I'm just echoing.
Yeah,
pitching I've heard.
They're gonna come out I can't wait for that Legacy or what remaster or whatever they're doing with it. I'm so excited because I've been wanting to play that series again for a long time.
I think it's a game Willer would actually I think Willer would really enjoy it.
Except the first game's combat sucks, and I hate it every time.
You don't play the game for combat.
Space is a really hard setting to get me into.
It's true.
The best space setting is a music album for me because I like that's how like detached I am from.
Because you can goof and then listen out.
No, because it's a good fucking album, all right? It's about a space hotel in the moon and the stories that take place therein. Okay? The one other thing I wanted to bring up before we hit main topics is I'm trying to grind out Judgment. League is really eating up my time as finishing these single player games. So, Joe, wait, you finished 13 Sentinels. Let's talk about that in a second.
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
Man, Judgment is really good, y'all. The one weakness of it is that there's too many tailing missions, but they're mostly side quests, so you could skip them. But Yakuza games live and die by those side quests. That's not true because the main story is like I am so gripped when there's a main story cutscene, like, and it's so well directed. There was a cutscene where your character has to go into like the seedy underground casino area to find a dude who's been hiding out there. And like the direction of that scene and the camera work and how hype the fighting in there was just like wow. But the mystery that your sleuth character is solving is like really interesting right now. I still got a lot of game to go, unfortunately. I'm like 25 hours in and there's still like 6 chapters to go. So I could rush it, but like the side stories are really good. It just feels like a really good atypical RPG, which they literally went that direction with 7, where like you're doing side quests, you're leveling up your skill tree, and you're doing random battles with goons, and then there's just a really good plot. And yeah,
cool,
really good game. What main topic shall we jump into first? Joe, I think you should get Factorio out of the way.
Oh, okay. I'll talk about Factorio. Factorio is a game that came out a while ago. It's not necessarily a new game. It was on Steam Greenlight or Steam Early Access, and I say a while ago. It actually came out last year, August 14th, but it was on Steam for a long time in Early Access. This game is kind of like a survival kind of game like Minecraft, where like you collect resources and then you build stuff and you want to make your base and all this other kind of things. The thing is that the game is all about efficiency. It's all about creating systems within your base to operate and make yourself self-sufficient on itself. So like you'll set up a mining camp, and that mining camp will then auto-deliver its resources to like your conveyor belts, and those conveyor belts will then divert them all off, and you can make like cars and little robot men to help you out. And
that sounds like Cookie Clicker with extra steps.
Yes. But the game has a really good progression system, so you're never overwhelmed at first. So you start off like really simple, like, oh, I just have the basic mining thing, and then I put coal in it. It spits out ore, and then you get the conveyor belts, and you're having them all just get dropped off on boxes, and then you make the factory, and the factory can make you like little gears that you can use to like make other stuff. So there's definitely like a really good like linear progression where like literally you will start off with nothing, and then you'll get to the point where you have like these little robot drones like patrolling your base and like going around and shooting off the aliens that are trying to kill you. The other thing I really like about this game is that it does have an end game. Your goal is you crash land on a planet, and the goal is to build a rocket ship to leave. Like that is your ultimate goal.
That's
it's kind of like
Pikmin-esque.
Yeah. It's almost like Dr. Stone, the game, where you have to start at very base levels. Like, all right, I know how to make a mining equipment, and I know how to do this. I have to research how to do everything else and get to there. So you're constantly like exploring the map, finding other resources, and just defending your base from these alien critters that are building up more and more and more and trying to kill you because they don't like the pollution you're making on their planet. Which is kind of funny because I don't know. I feel like the bad guy, but at the same time, I just want to get the fuck off this planet. But what's really cool about it, it's multiplayer. So like you and your friends can like make your own little factory base together, and y'all can survive together and fend off and try to get off the planet together, which I think is really neat. I haven't been able to try it yet, but I really like the game because it's all about efficiency and it's trying to make the most. Like you have to plan out your base, and I don't feel like I'm just wandering aimlessly. I always feel like I have an objective to go to.
There's a part of me that should be really into these types of games, and I don't know why I'm not.
That's how I feel.
I think it's a lack of, like, a layer above that. Like, I'm gonna compare it kind of to Pikmin. I don't know if it's similar, but like, Pikmin is at least a cool setting and like it's cutesy. As far as I've seen the Factorio, it's like very like. There's a type of game that, like, a type of player plays where it's, like, very, like... You know those games? I don't know how to explain... Like, those efficiency games that you're talking about? Like, that's just not me. That's just not my type.
The game isn't cute. I will get that. But I can't say it's ugly because all the sprites on it are very well animated.
Oh, it's sprite.
It's very much like those old RTS games where, like, it's not a 3D image. It's a 2D image, but it's made to look 3D. And they really like do a really good job of using that to their advantage because every single thing has like its own animations and it's really like unique and they're really well detailed. And if you look at something, you know exactly what's happening in that fact, like what's happening. Like you see the smoke coming out, you see like fire turning, you see gears turning, and it's really clean and clear. Whereas like those older games are like really blurry and they try to hide their flaws. So you can look at something and really see what that is. And I think I thought it looked ugly at first too, and it wasn't appealing. And then I watched a few videos and there's a free demo of it on Steam, and it goes through all the tutorials for you, which is really nice. I just really and it carries over.
I just really like Tyler right now. Like, I don't know, it's just like mostly neck. Like, it's fun.
I'm not a big Minecraft person. I'm not a big Animal Crossing person, but I've been really liking this game. So the fact that a survivor kind of resource collection game has gotten my attention and I really am invested in it. I really like playing it. It's kind of good.
Switching gears real quick. How did you think about the end of 13 Sentinels since you finished that since the last podcast?
Oh my god.
So all the hype of it for me has died down because that was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think. That was in our death period.
That was in the death period.
Wait, the podcast.
So I guess we just didn't talk about it at all because I thought you finished it after the podcast we recorded.
No, we just didn't talk about it at all because I finished it before I went back to school, and we did our next one after I went back to school.
I just missed it then.
Yeah, we just forgot about to do it. But anyways, I really liked it. I think it's great. I think it's really cool that once you realize what the story is, the game kind of knows that and it changes its UI. I'm like, oh. Neat. Some of the things that was pitching to Willer actually were kind of pretty accurate.
I was really happy to get the like nightly Joe report because I was like, oh man, he is piecing it almost together, and it's really fun watching your friends piece stuff together that you already know. I don't know. There's a weird pleasure in that.
I think they did a really good job with the writing in that game is really tight. Like it's a shame that. It doesn't get more recognition for that.
That's why I preach about it. Like, it's a game where, like, it's word of mouth only. Because you can't even advertise it very much because part of the game is not talking about specifics or showing certain things.
I mean, to me, I would say it's kind of like it's a robot fight game. The story writing is really tight, and it has action time-based combat.
Like,
kind of
like 7 Remake,
Yeah. So I think the game is really good, and I really like that the game is a game. It doesn't emphasize that visual novel. It kind of does, but like that visual novel portion is still engaging because it's just the way that they present things to you. Like and then they don't force you to play that part for very long because you can always go back and do the combat missions whenever you want. So it has a really good balance of that, and I think that game is like aces. 5 out of 5. It'll probably be competing for its spot again this year for Game of the Year. because I'll have played it this year.
No, I can't because we've already done it. It got 2.
Are you sure?
It's fine.
It got a good place. I fought for it too.
Yeah, Tyler helped me out. I showed him 30 minutes before we did our game of the year. Like, that was enough.
It got a bronze medal.
That's a neat game design to understand.
I highly recommend Bradley playing this game because I think he would actually.
I mean, yeah, y'all.
He said
y'all
y'all
gotta convince me.
Yeah,
y'all don't gotta convince me. I'm super down for it.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great Bradley and Willer game where Willer sits to the side and gaslights Bradley the entire time.
So good. Gaslighting Bradley is like become a pastime that I really enjoy.
But it is. I do like it's interesting because that game is non-linear, where like in VLR there's definitely paths you can go down, but you have to go down every path to get there. You know what I'm saying?
I suppose you could stop at a VLR ending and stop there.
Yeah,
because it's a branching tree it's not a branching tree in. You're playing all over the place in a straight timeline.
Yeah, it's hard to describe. Like you are witnessing like a timeline of events in different perspectives in different orders.
Two new things I'll bring up in this round of discussions for it. I've been listening to the music a lot. The game's soundtrack is incredible. It's 5 hours long, and especially the fight themes are bangers. There's one called Methionine, which I recommend everyone listen to. I'll link it later. Also, the game has really hard Japanese names, so I really appreciate how they make sure to name drop people with first and last names often.
Same.
Tetsuya Ida, Ryoko Shinonome.
I also like that in the description for things, they will explain the cultural significance of names or other things. Yeah. Like there's a character who has one name, and then her nickname is nowhere close to what her name is. Yeah. And then they're like, it's a play on words in the kanji and rapid and everything.
Yeah. And then also, the UI changes Joe brought up. There's like there's the obvious one you're bringing up. Have you looked at it since you beat the game? Because I don't think you did. Because there's new things that you can press R1 and L1 on in the event list.
Yes, there are more things to sort through. Yeah, I do.
It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Tyler. Oh, Tyler has to take the dogs out. Woof woof.
Yeah. And I have a segue into our next topic.
Okay, I can kill some time. You know what?
Sorry.
We can talk about Hitman 3.
Okay, I'll talk about Hitman 3. Welcome to the JoeCast, where I talk about every game I ever played. Hitman 3 came out last week. Last week. Was it last week? I think it was last week. It was last week. Hitman 3 came out last week. I have gone ahead and played through Hitman 1 and 2 again, just because. Those games are really, really good. Hitman 3 is the finality of the trilogy that IOI has done for this series. It's kind of like a reboot remake, it's like a reboot, but like it still carries on all the previous titles in its canon, more or less. But you don't need to play those past games to play this game. Like it references them, but they have no correlation.
It's like a Bond. No, it's not like a Bond trilogy, but it's okay.
Yeah, that's the closest thing. It's like they can reference previous things, but like it really doesn't matter. The game, if you haven't played Hitman before, basically every mission is you're given objectives to kill at least one person and then maybe do something else. And the game, as some streamers have said, is the greatest comedy game ever made because they take everything 100% seriously in the storyline and the characters, but the game designers don't.
Yeah. And
they have a really good job of blending those two elements together and really like in the UI and like the game part of the game the game like the things that aren't like the reality of that game, it gives you nudge winks, which is like, hey, you really shouldn't take this seriously, but everyone else we're in a joke that the characters in the game don't know. Basically,
this one can be played in full VR, right?
Yes,
that should be really cool.
It's really. I have it on the PlayStation, so I'm not going to be playing on my VR headset setup. But what's also really but yeah, the VR is really cool. I haven't seen much about it or looked into it.
I would imagine it's got to be one of the best VR games, like up there with like Resi 7 and Half-Life Alyx and stuff.
Maybe but like there's so many weird things that you do in this game, and it's just kind of funny to see Agent 47 in the outfits that you get that you kind of miss out, and the absurdity you see of him running around in a clown.
Like in Hitman 2, he gets to be Florida Man, and like yeah.
But what's really great about Hitman 3 and the Hitman series in general is that if you own the previous games, they carry over to this game, so I literally can play the entire trilogy in one game.
Now, okay, I wanted to ask something about that. Is there not any like new mechanics or moves that you can do in 3?
There are new mechanics. I did find out in but they don't introduce them until Hitman 3. But I'm pretty sure they're in the previous Hitman games. They do like they put some of them into like they put the mechanics into the previous sections. But you have a camera now that can take pictures. But the camera can also be used to access electronic devices and find other intels that you could not normally find.
And they retroactive, like, these games have such weird production cycles because of, like, I guess they're all in the same engine, despite that they're all sequels. But then, like, they want to make sure you can play them all. It's very weird that way.
That's how they originally set up. So, fun story about this trilogy is that they originally were going to do a trilogy, and the original idea of the series was you would basically buy expansion passes, and the game levels would come out, like, monthly or something like that.
Yeah.
So, they released Hitman 1, and you bought the expansion pass for it, and people hated the fact they had to wait till the levels come out. And they really did not like that. So what they ended up doing for Hitman 2 was like, okay, we're going to release everything at the same time,
you'll just have to wait.
and you can carry things over. But when that was happening, they also lost their publisher or something, and they had to change publishers, so their budget got cut.
Hitman 3 is technically an indie game.
Yeah,
it's like self-published by them.
Yeah, they completely self-published. They've made back all the money that they spent making the game already, which is fantastic.
The quality games. I really like these games. It's in my huge backlog of games. They're somewhere in there for me to revisit at some point.
And what's great is that like I've literally played through the first 2 games in like 2 weeks. Like they each have 6 levels. Each level story-wise takes about an hour if you really don't know what you're doing, which is me because I'm like, where the fuck is anything? And you're running
guides because there's like in-game nudges to get you to like complete certain events.
Those I do use. I use anything that the game gives me. I don't try to look anything else up online.
Okay.
I in fact I haven't at all recently. Like I just go with it. I think that's the best way to play it, is like you just kind of like fumble your way to victory, because there came to a point. It's like I did this story mission and like, oh, I didn't actually prepare to get to this moment. So you just take out your gun and shoot everyone in the room and then leave. So
there's always the moment that comes down where you're just like, okay, I've chosen violence, like blatant.
Yeah, you're just like, cool. And then there are sometimes where like you accidentally walk into like perfect moment to kill somebody. You're like, oh, and then you just leave.
I did that. I think in 2 there was like a mission in a mansion with a tattoo artist. And like I set up myself to disguise myself as the tattoo artist, and I think I was supposed to kill him with the ink gun or something. But the person in the room with me turned around and was like, I was like, I did all this setup to do the cool tattoo gun kill, and then I just broke his neck like a fucking scrub.
I think what's really interesting is I realized about the game is that the best score doesn't come from those story missions. It comes from you actively playing creatively and doing something that's much more faster and efficient, which I think is a great way to like kind of.
So there's the guided story missions, like there's 6 of them, like paths you can take and they will guide you. But then there's also like 18 achievements per mission that will urge you to like find your own creative way. And I think that's really cool. If you want to dump a bunch of hours and like get all those, you're gonna have to get creative, which I like.
Yeah, I think it's really cool, and it does make you go like, well, do I really want to do this time? I like doing the missions because I think they are really clever and thought out, and you get some really silly stuff happening sometimes.
Part of the reason why I haven't finished is because I was trying to get some of those achievements, and it slowed down my progress.
I think you know, it's to me, it's a really casual game of like, I want an hour to where I want a game where I have to think about, but I don't want to spend a lot of time, and it's truncated to a certain amount of time. I think that's really good. They also come out with like their own like other missions in those. They'll reuse the maps and put in new targets with new things, and I think it's really cool. But what I'm excited about now is that IOI got the license to make a Bond game, which is kind of crazy.
That's pretty
and they are the perfect studio to do that. I played the first mission of Hitman 3, like the first actual new mission, and I played through that level. I was like, oh, you probably literally use this for your vertical slice to prove you can make a Bond game, because all the other ones were like they were pretty like in like regular locations, like they're at a racetrack or they're at like an art gallery or something.
That
like that
racetrack level is such a good first level.
That was a really cool level.
That's a great level. Like they're really grounded. Like they're grounded kind of locations. Like they're
then you're in the nuclear submarine hangar or something.
Yeah, no, like this one that they start you out with is like literally in the sky, and you parachute in, and you have to sneak into a cocktail party with your gadget camera to unlock the door. I'm like, oh, I see what you're doing.
Bradley.
Yes.
Let's do it. Let's talk about one of the greatest spin-offs of all time.
Y'all. It's like there's very few. I've played quite a few main series Final Fantasy games, but I've never like been crazy about them. But for some reason, I fucking always love Final Fantasy spin-off games.
Wow.
And Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. Actually, like on like pretty much any of the Final Fantasy Tactics games are fucking killer.
All three of them. Shame.
And like, so this game, Willer and I were driving to go visit friends, which includes Joe and Tyler. And at some point during the drive, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance came up, and we were like, man. that was a cool game. Wish I could play that again. And then when we got to our destination, I had brought my Wii U along with me because one of my other friends requested it.
He requested a game that Bradley did not bring with all this.
Yeah, he requested Nintendo Land, and I forgot to bring it because that was before I bought everything digitally.
But you know what he did bring?
Yeah, so I forgot I had a giant virtual console library on the Wii U that included Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. So like Willer woke up the next morning and I was like, yo, look what I'm playing. And he was like, what the fuck?
It was so high. I've returned back from that trip, and I also have it on my 3DS through shady means. So I've also been playing through it much slower than Bradley.
So yeah, I finished it in less than a week. I played the fuck out of it. And man, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance is fun because number one, cool fucking classes. Okay. Number one. I don't know, not just in this one, but all the Final Fantasy Tactics games just have really cool classes, except they're called jobs. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't know, they just get really fun with it.
Playing Final Fantasy Tactics Advance as a child on my emulator ruined all Western class-based media for me. That was before like I ever heard of like any Dungeons and Dragons shit or any of these Western RPGs. It just absolutely like I don't give a shit about your thief, rogue, warrior, archer core when I can play juggler. Okay, like you've been topped since I was a child.
I feel like that's the only thing going for me when Willer plays Bravely Default is like they have a couple of those default like monk, warrior, but then it gets into shit like alchemist, pop star, K-pop star.
I always like me some red mages. We got some of those. It's true. That is the only thing carrying Bravely Default right now.
Dude, the fucking blue mages.
Like blue class. My main character's a blue mage in my play.
The only skill that you can actually teach a blue mage is a skill called learning, but it's a passive skill that makes it so whenever they are hit by a skill that's like specific to a certain monster or enemy, they learn that skill.
Permanently.
And
that is a class in Bravely Default.
Yeah. It's because Bravely Default learned from the best.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's Square Enix people. Wait, you're telling me there's a blue mage in Bravely Default, but I'm like 60 hours into the game and I don't have it. It's more closer to 40.
It is. So I told you like the like major spoiler of Bravely Default, right?
Yes.
It is the last or second to last class. It's in the last section of classes you get
before you start loop 2.
Yeah.
Wow. I guess that's how you'll pick up all the abilities on your way back.
Yes. It is very busted. Like, class is so damn good.
You already know Tiz is about to be a blue mage if I ever get there. You already know. That's just a perfect fit. Tiz is the odd man out where his classes don't make much sense. Could be Ring a Bell too. I don't know. We'll see.
No, you know what you got to make ring a bell.
I don't. I'm not sure. He's a dragoon right now.
Ring a Bell actually has an assigned class to him that if anybody went through that game and did not make him this class, they're kind of like,
I don't think I have it yet.
Your motivation, but
this ain't Bravely Default talk. This is advanced talk. Another cool thing about Final Fantasy Tactics Advance is the pretty exceptionally cool story that kind of starts off pretty lighthearted, but actually becomes really interesting by the end.
It is phenomenal. It's a weird twist on isekai, right?
Yes, it is an isekai I like.
Because these kids get, in their world, Final Fantasy is also a game franchise. Right. And they get thrust into Final Fantasy, and they're like, oh my god, this is so cool. Like, the first little tutorial section of the game takes place in real life, and you get to see just a very short glimpse for each of the main characters, why their life isn't exactly the best it could be.
Yeah.
And then the next day they find themselves in Final Fantasy. It's cool. They're in a game and they kind of get to do all the shit they could ever want. Like, one of the characters is a prince and he gets to, like, it's straight up a dictatorship. Like, he can make any rules and laws he wants. And then, like, some of the other characters, you know, they get to join Final Fantasy parties and they're really strong and they can use magic and they get to find money and treasure. It's really cool. And so even your main character is like, oh yeah, it's kind of cool. But he's like, I got to figure out how to get back home because, like, obviously he's got to figure out how to get back home. And then so as he starts running into other people from the real world, he's like, hey, have you figured out, like, how we're going to get home yet? And they're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, you know, we got to get home. And they're like, we don't have to. Like, what's the problem?
Their lives are all better in this fictional world.
Like, every single character, including the main character's life, exclusively got better whenever they transferred to this new world. And so it kind of becomes everybody against the main character. And you really even start to doubt yourself and your motivations, because even the main character admits, yeah, life is just objectively better for my brother, for my friend, even kind of for me here.
But it's fantasy.
And so, like, he'll say that out loud, and then your enemy's like, so why the fuck are you doing this? And your character doesn't have an answer. And, you know, over the course of the story, characters start coming around and realize that, you know, maybe staying in this world isn't the best for them in certain ways.
I'm going to ask a weird request to not spoil the ending of a game I've beaten before, because I forgot enough to where this could be fun to go through it again.
Yeah, man, even now there are moments where I'm like, I still don't know if I was the good guy in that situation.
I know a lot of people come out of this game like hating Marsh, and I'm like, no, Marsh is like a complex kid. Like, I really like Marsh as a main character.
They're like, it's really complex, and I was getting to the point where I was like, you know what, they're right. You know, this is like escapism for the characters. It's not healthy. And I was watching the end credit sequence where it kind of sees where everybody ended up, and I was like, man, I don't know, Marsh might actually be kind of a fucking asshole.
Oh, that's so good. What a good fucking game.
As far as back to mechanics, did we talk about the law system?
Let's talk about the law system.
So in every battle, there's a fucking judge, and basically certain actions each battle, which are they're different actions every time, will be illegal. Like, oh, no using blades in this match, no using guns, no using the same move twice in a row, no hitting the same person twice in a row, stuff like that. And number one, it's cool because, like, there's a reason for it in the story, and it's that your friend who became the prince is, like, over afraid of everything, and, like, just on the daily he changes what things are laws. And it's also cool from a gameplay perspective because it keeps battles fresh. You can't necessarily always do the same shit every battle, and I think it's really fun.
Another cool, like, there's a clan system in this game, so you're like, you're part of a clan. There's a cool twist midway through where you start going into slums to battle, and in the slums your characters perma-die.
Yes,
so
there are. Cool. there are places you can choose to fight that have permadeath, so you got to be really careful.
Which I'm excited to get to those parts again, and like the move learning system they borrowed from Final Fantasy IX, where each equipment has moves that you can learn. So you're rotating your equipment out to like customize your characters out with moves for their classes and subclasses. It's just great.
Man, that's good loop. I watched y'all play it, and I've heard about Final Fantasy Tactics and like the job change system, but I'd never seen anybody play it. And the cool mechanic I saw Bradley use and try to explain to me was the job like evolution system where you unlock jobs as you go through.
Yes. Yeah. So, for example, to unlock a new class, you have to learn a certain amount of skills with another class. Like, for example, a time mage is like an advanced mage class. To learn it, you have to learn 5 black mage skills and I think like 3 white mage skills.
I think it's just 5 black for a time mage.
So normally by default a character has no skills, but each weapon has a skill assigned to it, and while you have that weapon equipped, you can use that skill. Take the weapon off, you lose that skill. However, if you use that weapon enough, if you get enough AP, your character will permanently learn that skill. So like if I permanently learn like 2 fencer abilities, 1 elementalist ability, and like 2 archer abilities, I can become an assassin. And that's really cool to me.
This does make me want to segue into our second to last point. But Bradley, do you have anything else on Tactics Advanced?
Now, if someone wants to get into Final Fantasy Tactics, I will say the other 2 Tactics games probably have cooler combat and even way cooler jobs available than this one to me, but...
Does the original have better combat?
I think so.
Okay. I never played much of it.
Dude, the original has some cool fucking classes. Like, there's the Arithmetician, which does stuff like you can cast a spell that targets everybody whose MP currently has a prime number in the tens digit place. Like,
so
it's
cool.
Shit. And then there's like there's the Samurai, which is a melee class, but its attack damage is based on what your max MP is. Like, it's some crazy shit.
The evolution system in Final Fantasy Tactics is something I dream to remake one day.
Yeah, they're really cool games. So I
feel like if me and Tyler were to ever work on a project together, it would be something class based, because that is where we actually understand. Get those eyebrows away from me right now. We're
Tactics, or like the first Tactics game, and then Tactics Advance 2, I think have cooler combat and stuff, but Tactics Advance just genuinely has a really fascinating story to me.
Yeah. The game, so playing this scratched my itch to revisit a series that is actually one of my favorite franchises.
Oh,
what do y'all know about Disgaea? What do y'all really know?
Oh, that's right, you jumped back in.
I'm back in.
I know it had, what do I know? I know it has a bunch of cute people, and numbers go up into like, I don't even know the words for numbers that big.
Okay. That's what you know. What do you know, Tyler, about Disgaea?
I know the name, and I think it was in my Nintendo Power magazines as a kid.
Nah, pass. Joe, what do you know?
I've been playing the game.
Joe actually got the game on sale, so
yeah.
But he's still pretty early on, so he hasn't like really scratched the surface. So let me give you a primer on Disgaea. Let's take, for example, so Disgaea is much like Final Fantasy Tactics, where it is a class-based, unit-based strategy RPG. However, it is the hyper-ultimate. Now, that might make it seem shallow. Disgaea franchise are the deepest games I've pretty much ever played, outside of going, like, stupid deep, like Space Station 13 or Dwarf Fortress. I'm talking about, like, in the realm of humans, Disgaea is the deepest games, all right?
Is that where the penguin comes from?
That's where the penguins come from, yes. So, let's talk about the law system. And let's talk about how everything that Final Fantasy Tactics and Ogre Tactics, which are like the 2, and Fire Emblem, which are kind of the games that spawned Disgaea, and how it improved on every aspect. So here's one example. The law system, right? That's in Disgaea, but taken to the next level. There's panels of a certain color, and then these pyramids called
something. Geo keys.
We're gonna call them Geo pyramids. Okay, so there's Geo pyramids, and if they are on top of a panel, every panel of that color is now under the effect of that Geo crystal. So, for example, no melee. So if it's on red, if you're on a red panel, you can't use melee attacks. But then, say there's also a no magic, okay? Both are on the red, and now while you're in red, you can't use magic or melee. However, these Geo Pyramids also have a color. And if the color doesn't match the color of the tile and you kill that panel, it'll change every panel into that color. So they start creating these puzzles in mid-matches where it's like, oh shit, everything in red is beneficial. But if I pick up this panel, put it on red, and pop it, I'm going to turn reds into blues, and blues are beneficial for me. So, like, it took the law system and made it super complex. The class system, like, there's so many fucking classes in this game. And what's cool is, by manipulating the game systems, you can create a unit that has all the benefits of every class, pretty much.
Oh my god.
Do anything. But you have to learn how to fully take advantage of all the systems, like reincarnation, which is once you hit level 999, your stats are not even close to
999.
Yeah, once you hit 9999, so that's 10,000, your stats aren't even close to hitting the max that they can. So you can reincarnate and put points based on how many stats you're losing into your base stats, so the next go around you have more stats. And then there's other systems, like each individual item contains an infinite world, though in 5, which is the best one.
Jeez.
I think the world caps out at 500 floors. So each item has 500 floors of randomly generated dungeons in it.
When you say item, is that like there's 500 floors for like the potion item, or like different kinds of items?
Potion,
what the fuck?
SP heal, basic sword, each class of weapons. So you have sword, gun, axe, fist, spear, bow, staff, and then magical monster weapon and physical monster weapon. So that's like 9 classes of weapons. They each have 40 weapons. So each of those weapons and all usable weapons have a world inside them. In that world exists innocence. Innocence you can kill and then transfer over to other levels, other items, and they will give their buffs. So like there's an innocent that will raise the EXP you get if it's inside your item, or an innocent that raises that item's attack growth rate, so you can move them over to other items. And then what you're really, like, a really big way to power up in this guy is either you get your character really strong, or you get your item really strong, or you master each class, where after you've mastered each class, your character has like 20 million in each stat if you do that. Like, just a mind-boggling amount of systems that I've only scratched the surface of. It's super feature-rich. It's got map creation. It's got, like, you can create little netherworlds that will invade other players. It's stupid deep. The stories are whatever. They're fun because the characters are fun.
I skip them every time.
I think you should at least give them a go.
Some of the voice acted ones I'll let them go, but like I'm not reading the side things that pop up in my...
Fair.
Because I'm like, no.
I like the story of 4 and 5, but for example, I started at 2, and the story of 2 is like, so whatever. But what you coming for Disgaea for is genuinely the deepest RPG that you can sink thousands of hours into if you want, or you can just complete the story, which is always like 20 to 40 hours. So I'm back in, and it's a prominent time because Disgaea 6 got announced. We didn't think it was going to happen. And it came out in Japan today, actually. And the thing with Disgaea 6 is that... The thing about Disgaea is that it's always had, like, the most gorgeous sprite art of the generation of consoles. Like,
I really like the art style of it, by the way.
Disgaea 5 looks gorgeous, for example, right? However, Disgaea 6 went for 3D models, I think because their budgets are always pretty low. So I think that's why they make, like, system-based games, as opposed to, like, pumping out a bunch of games. They make, like, one big game every couple of years. And, like, cut back on a bunch of features. Like, okay, so there's monster units, and each monster can be a party member. So there's like 20 to 30 classes, but then also 20 races of monsters, and they're all unique and whatever, right? Your monsters have the ability to magic change into weapons. So there's these big tree ant monsters, and they can turn into axes, which is really cool because then you get their unique weapon-based ability that you can only use when they're turned into a weapon wielded by someone else. They took out that feature, for example. They took out like a bunch of the classes, which could be a good thing because like maybe if they make the classes more unique, I could be good with that. A cool thing they added is you get to program an AI for your characters for the first time. So you have like a scripting language in the game where you get to program your character to like.
What the fuck?
I know, it's fucking nuts. I'm that's the feature I'm excited about.
Okay, that's pretty badass.
So it's like, oh shit, I'm gonna run this map a bunch of times. I could just program my character to fight a certain way, or I'm gonna dive into the item dungeons. I can program them to like tackle that a certain way. So that's an exciting feature, but like. It's the first, like, each Disgaea game is better than the last, and I feel like it's the first time where they took either a side step or, like, a slightly backward step, but it seems pretty fresh, so I'm still gonna get it when it comes out, but I'm probably gonna play more of 5, because 5 is, like, with Disgaea, you should always start at the most recent one, because, like, going backwards, it's like, oh my god, like, so many quality of life features and so many
So, stories are, like, unrelated between each one?
Yeah, well, so they take place in netherworlds, which are like underworld universes, and they each take place in a different netherworld. And like you know the dispatch missions in Final Fantasy Tactics, you have that in D5 where you ship out your units, like because you're gonna have like up to 100 units very casually, and you can just
like go to other netherworlds.
Yeah. So one thing that can happen is characters from previous entries can show up in the new one, but you really don't need to know anything because they'll.
Okay. Because that's the thing. Like I remember, like sometimes I'll see characters from one in like another one, and so that always made me think like, oh, dude, like, do you have to play all of them? But I guess that's what's that.
Not at all.
I found out that I was progressing the game wrong because they're like I got the complete edition, so it gives you a bunch of bonus content, and a lot of that bonus content is unlocking those characters, and they have their own like set missions. And I was going through it, and I beat a section of the level, and the one below, and there was one below it, and I was like, oh, that must be what's next. And I did that. That was an unlock mission for the first protagonist of the game,
for Mahara, which is the one you commonly see. He's a little kid with a big sword and like an antenna, like blue hair. And then he's got the angel sidekick and the demon sidekick. And it's like Joe just dove right into that.
And I did that, and I finished it, and then it reset. I was like, what the fuck is this? Why is this whole thing like resetting? So I did like 3 times. And every time like my characters would die because the game is programmed to make it a little bit harder than the characters you have.
Yeah, it scales with you.
Missions. I was like, William, am I just bad at the game? Like he's like, no, you're
doing the DLC missions basically. Yeah. Another cool thing, like, every time Joe's like, man, I wish you could do this. I'm like, oh, you can. You can.
Yeah.
Like, something they fixed since the first Disgaea is like, man, it sucks that I have to slowly move my units to this location. In Disgaea, you get to make stacks of your characters where they lift each other up, and you can make a stack of up to 10 characters, and then you can just throw each other across the map to get to the point where you can get. And in D5...
I realized that's the technique of like, oh, this is how I get to some place quickly, is I set myself up to just yeet myself across the map.
Yeah, in D5 they added like moves that you can only perform when you're in a tower now. So like you have a tower and then it'll flip like this and be upside down, and then like so the entire tower can move together by like flipping itself over. They have attacks where like you launch a person up each rung of the tower and then they get like spiked down by the end. Combo attacks in Final Fantasy Tactics are just a base mechanic where, like, if you do a base attack with any adjacent units, they have a chance of joining in. And I think the last thing I want to bring up, and the thing that got me into Disgaea, and I'm surprised none of y'all brought it up, so I guess y'all might not know, is how fucking insane the attack animations are. They're, like, the most... Like, once you get, like, past the midway point of the game, every attack you're doing is, like, a Sephiroth supernova, like, from Final Fantasy VII. The one thing I'm going to do after this, I'm gonna link Bradley with some of the cute girls because I'm surprised he doesn't know about like. I feel like the art style is very.
Oh,
like,
I've seen a lot of these.
There's a witch girl that like this is Bradley's character.
I'll send you. Oh, Metallica. I'll send you some of my favorites. But then I'm also gonna link you a skill exhibition where you get to see all the crazy attack moves or like an assortment of them and be like, oh, that's why Willer's into this because you press a button and you watch a universe explode.
What I really like about this game too is that when you recruit a character, you also get to set its personality.
Which changes their voice actors.
Yeah, I got these 2 warriors, and I didn't know what I was doing at the time, so I both set them to muscles, to like muscle focus or whatever it is as their personality. And so whenever they combo into each other, the combo they like to do is like they jump up in the air and then ride each other down into like a meteor smash. So they go up and they go muscle, 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 and then just meteor dive into the other person going muscle and just kill them.
That is funny. Yeah, they added a lot of customization. Like you get to customize your character's colors, for example, and like their voices. It's just so fun, man. But like, yeah, it's kind of a niche. Like if you don't like strategy RPGs and you don't like I don't know if you would like it because it's like super hyper version. Like it's the end stop of what a strategy RPG could be. It's just really fun. And the last thing, as we wrap up this podcast, is Tyler is going to talk to us about It, the book.
Yes.
Oh man. So
what do you mean, man?
I had seen It 1, and this is my second Stephen King movie now.
Book, you mean?
No, I've never read any other Stephen King books, so this is my first Stephen King book.
You watched Pet Sematary. I'm getting you confused with Joe.
I watched Pet Sematary.
My bad.
And I've read a little bit of Pet Sematary, but I was like, whatever. But anyway, so I started reading It September of last year. And then I was like, God, why the fuck does Stephen King go into detail about so much shit? Like, he just goes into detail of so much. He just keeps going on and on. And I'm like, all right, it builds a nice world. He good author, like, good on him. But I couldn't stand anymore. So then I started listening to it.
Nice.
Ended up being free on a phone app for audiobooks that I'm not sponsored by, so I'm not going to say its name.
You can say the A word, okay? It's all right. This podcast is sponsored by Audible. It's not.
Yeah, it ended up being free. And man, Steven Weber is this guy who narrated it. He just did a bang up job, And I was just like, going from the Worm audiobook to like a professional, I was like, is this heaven for my ears?
Yeah, I'll say it's like we appreciate fan audiobooks, but man, you can tell it's a fan audiobook.
But I'm currently listening to Peo and Pact, and Pact is voiced by the chattest man alive, and Peo is voiced by a couple of dweebs. It's like,
yeah, like for some reason the Pact fan audiobook has like a genuinely amazing narrator.
But it was really good. The main thing that got me reading it is I wanted to watch the second movie. Because the first movie I enjoyed. I don't think it's a really scary movie. I really like the sci-fi aspect of it. So I was really hoping, and then I heard the book was more sci-fi. Like I kind of knew it just through like sources, like, oh, there's a turtle and some other shit. And I'm like, all right, fine, I'll read the book, So
yeah, Tyler,
I read the book.
Tell me about the space turtle, because you do your thing, but I do want to hear about the space turtle.
The space turtle just fucking exists, man. There's nothing else to the space turtle. The space turtle is God in a sense, but also is the antithesis to God, that there is no God. Okay. Like the space turtle vomited the universe, and because he had bad indigestion.
Is it like the anti-space turtle, like the devil?
No, it is from a different universe.
That's pretty sick.
It's like basically it and the turtle, I think, are a very small subset of beings and things that get explored in the Dark Tower series.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wait, I've heard is also really good that I might look into.
Yeah.
The Dark Tower, and my brother read The Dome. Is that one of them?
I don't know. I haven't read them.
I think there's a Stephen King novel called The Dome, that he's read that he's a big fan of. So I think it'll be nice just to get into these more adult novels as I get older, you know. I very much took the Space Turtle to be very Douglas Adams in the sense of it just fucking exists. Don't ask questions.
It's in there.
Yeah, it's there. Don't fucking acknowledge it. Like whatever.
Douglas Adams, that dude fucking right.
Yeah. I really see why the movies are done the way they are because Stephen King writes the entire novel. He writes 2 stories at a time, and they're just woven pretty well together because it constantly changes from the perspective of the adults to the kids.
Mm-hmm. Which they don't do that for the movies for the most part, where they seem to really segment them. Except the most recent, the one that I really disliked, they did have flashbacks to new stuff, but it was mostly the adults in that one.
I really think like the magnum opus of the It series is if they made It 1 and It 2, but made it and then like made an It 3, but made it in a way that it gets super cut all together is the equivalent of the book. This movie ended up being like 6 hours long.
Yeah.
It would be absolutely shit crazy because it opens up from the perspective of the adults and they're all like slightly remembering what happened when they were kids, but you don't know what happened when they were kids if you've never seen the movies. So
that is interesting, right? Because it's like such a well-known story where like that's a cool way to start it.
Yeah, and like they're traveling home, and every time they talk about like traveling home, they're trying to remember what happened. It cuts away to them as kids. So we get like 6 to 7 flashbacks and present day stories about them. And so in reality, you're following these adults, but if you've seen the movies first, you know, you're following these kids. And that's the way it like ended up like working out for me. It's because like I've seen It 1 and that's it. I've never seen the old 80s movies or anything like that. So I know the movie to have these kids in it, very recent version of it. So as you know, like if you've ever seen a movie before you read the book, you have like a vision in your head versus one that you form on your own. So like I have the kid from Stranger Things in my head playing Richie, you know, and I'm like trying to imagine he's an adult, and I know Bill Hader is in It too. So I'm like, who the fuck is Bill Hader play? Because I actually know nothing about It too. So I'm just like, I guess Bill Hader might be Richie. I don't know. But I know he's in it. So like sometimes I think he's one character.
Do you want to know? Or do you
no.
Okay. All right.
But Stephen King does like it is so convoluted, but it's paced out so well. And I had a nice experience. If it's not anybody's like favorite Stephen King novel, I could understand. Like, it's not my favorite book either, but it was a very nice story.
I was gonna say like one effect of the horror that I think is a lot more apparent in the books than the movie, just because of the way they're formatted. With obviously the book, like constantly swapping between the child and adult portions of the story from the start, is that like one of the things it does is it just like manipulates the minds of people to, one, be numb to violence, and two, just forget things. And in the movies, you'll do the kid movie, and then for this goes for like the 90s and the more recent one, like you do the kid portion of the story, and then you go to the adult portion of the story, and there's so much they've forgotten that they have to flash back to. And when you're experiencing the stories those way, though they do touch on the fact that it manipulates people and makes them forget things, like it just feels like, oh, it's just been a long time, so they forgot this stuff. But in the book, I think you feel it a lot more that like, no, these are things they were purposefully and supernaturally forget.
So you read this, right, Bradley? I forgot that.
I didn't make it all the way through like Tyler did. At some point, like half the way through, I gave up.
The book is thick.
It's thick, and I was still hurt by Pet Sematary, I think. So I was like, do I really want to go all the way through this?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that the point of Stephen King is trying to make, or like what he's trying to appear on. Like, so Pet Sematary, for example, is all about death and the fear of it and the guilty conscience of death, kind of. It seems to me that Stephen King is going more this childhood trauma route, and how you kind of forget about what happened to you as a kid and really fucked you up, but like in that horror sense. Yeah. At least that's what I'm getting, is that like, because I think it's incredibly like purposeful that you flash back and forth, because you don't realize what the hell happened to you as a kid until you're an adult.
Yeah, and
I like that.
Like, along with that, it's a lot of it has to do with, I think, how people change how they see the world as they grow up, because it has so many elements of a coming of age story, and particularly the people that it targets when it's trying to make people forget things is adults. It's trying to, because like their town has like a disappearance and murder rate that's like 40 times the national average.
Jesus.
And this isn't a fact that's hidden. It's just adults will like hear the fact and go, that statistic, and go, oh my God. And then they forget about it, or they just become numb to it. And I think it's kind of a lot about how these children are more fresh to the world, and adults can kind of become numb to tragedy in the world. I think that's kind of a force that it is trying to represent.
Yeah, it's definitely like the idea of like, I have to grow up and I need to stop and like you have to forget about the things that like harmed you, kind of. Yeah. Like what y'all are saying, what I've read a little bit about it, it definitely has the idea of childhood trauma built into it.
My dumbass is over here just now realizing this as Bradley and Joe say it for the first time. Oh yeah, this is a sci-fi story about kids fighting clowns and shit.
Man.
And it's like, oh yeah, I'm sitting here, I know these kids go through trauma, but I never like make these comparisons or analysis.
Isn't it great to talk about media with your friends?
I know.
Yeah.
I have a book that I'm reading. I'm reading Dune right now, and I'm in love with this book. I don't want to talk about it until I finish it, but I've been having the hate. I had to stop myself from reading it. I love it so much.
I feel I want to experience the Dune. I hope the Dune movie comes out good, because I don't want to read the book. I want to know what's up film version.
Willer, if they do the Dune movie good, I think you would really like it, because it has a lot of elements of Game of Thrones and this idea of like political tactics to it.
It's all right.
But it's good. Like their like there's a lot of mind manipulation in the book of like what other characters are thinking about, what they think they're thinking about, and what they assume they think about. The book is just really good. But I'll get into it once I finish it. I'm over halfway done with it. I have like 200 pages left. But I just need to put time down and like do it by like reading it like in my flights or like in between class or something. So
I'm just not realizing it took me like 6 months to finish it.
It's fine. It's whatever.
More than that, dude. You've had that since you had the book since we went to Disney.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I know. But I didn't read, like, I put it down and then I came back to it. But I came back to the audiobook. The next audiobook is going to be Ready Player One.
Hey.
Oh, really? I've listened to that.
Dude,
it's written by Will Wheaton.
It seems so trashy.
There's this old like book, fiction book I read back in like elementary or middle school or something called Epic. And it's like their world is controlled by an MMORPG very similar to Ready Player One. But like it is like almost identically, I think.
Isekaiing since you were a fucking bab. I swear.
I second the audiobook for Ready Player One. I cannot read that book. That book is written like a child. But having Will Wheaton read it to me, I was like, this is kind of pleasant. I kind of really like it. It's really easy to go through, and it's not hard to follow along. That's how terribly written it is. Not saying that like a good book is hard to follow.
Can I please beg you to belay that and do Pact instead? Pact is such a Tyler story, I feel like.
Dude, I don't know if I'm like, you have to give me maybe when I have my firstborn child in like 4 years, then I can do another Worm book series.
Bro, no, fuck it. Dude,
another Wild Bow series.
Pact is so good. I missed having Worm talks with you, and Wild Bow actually made a second banger back to back, so it's like
more like his fucking first banger.
Audiobook,
more
right?
Like his magnum opus. Give the audiobook chapter 1 a listen, and you'll see that the reader is actually like a human being. That's really mean. The other readers aren't that bad. Like I'm being sassy.
The Worm audiobook's obviously a fan audiobook, but the Pact audiobook could be an audiobook that you pay for.
Yeah.
That's nice.
It's one reader except for interludes, and he's always doing a bang-up job.
That's good.
I feel like he's
We'll see.
Another really good audiobook that I listened to is The Martian. The Martian audiobook is stellar. But that's all I have for that.
Man, I'm the kind of I've seen the Martian movie and I love it. I feel like because of that I should never read the book.
I don't.
I prefer
have
film
you all
to
read,
literature.
Have you all read Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy trilogy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dude, I was at a Barnes & Noble in high school, and they have one giant book that's like all the Hitchhiker's Guide books in one.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Was
picked
it
it
the
up.
paperback or the gold Bible?
It's like it's a hardback, and it's black, and it has like a planet on it. But
That's the Bible.
I had never read any of those stories, and I'd never even seen the movie, which was out. I just was like, oh, I know this is the thing that exists. Maybe I'll try reading it.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked up the book, and I didn't put it down for a week, and I read every single motherfucking word in that book.
Yeah, that
Man, how come book talks are always universally our great, like some of our greatest talks, and I have the least to say because I'm a fucking
Shit.
dork over here. I got nothing.
I think it's Douglas Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is actually very good. Like the movie is pretty funny. The books are absolutely fucking hilarious.
I can't believe
it. Genuinely like funny ass, like some of the funniest shit I've ever read.
Yeah,
It was
I
incredible.
feel like they
He's
created Tyler.
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh yeah.
I feel like they created Tyler. They're like,
Oh yeah, like those. I was going through like middle school, like prime puberty when I started reading those. Those quite probably defined who I am as a character and my outlook.
Your Hitchhiker to the Galaxy is My Mother 3. Like that's where we are.
Probably.
We're like formative experiences.
I don't know. Book's good. You should read if you can.
Books are good. Educate yourself. It's a great time. Never stop reading.
No.
After I do, I mean, I'm not going to read. After I audiobook Packed and Pale, if I can make
We
it
doing
through
Sweet
Pale.
Home?
Well, Sweet... Oh, shit. You didn't do Sweet Home. Can you save
That's
Sweet
good.
Home?
It's okay.
No, hold on.
I watched Sweet Home. It's all right. First season's good. It reminds me of first season of Walking Dead.
Good
I
season.
feel like the rest of it's gonna follow suit of The Walking Dead, and I fucking hate The Walking Dead. So
Nice.
Sweet
I watched,
Home-
I think, 7 or 8 seasons of The Walking Dead.
So, yeah, me too. And, like, it really...
He got really bad.
I mentioned earlier, Sweet Home is a webcomic, so I literally have the page up. Like, I have it as a tab, and I read the first chapter, and I wanted to read more, because I heard that the Netflix adaptation kind of ruined it, but if you're saying it's alright, then I imagine, like, the webcomics must be pretty decent.
I have no context for the webcomic.
I can link it to you, and you can just take a look if you want.
An old pastime that I have is me and my grandmother always used to watch shitty sci-fi original movies.
Oh wow.
Dude, those are so good.
Oh yes, they are just like so. They are just terrible. And back when like Netflix used to have a star rating system, if any of our listeners didn't know that, you know that's how old we are.
Jesus Christ.
This is the star system. It came out right before you used to actually like call Netflix and like order them to be delivered to you, just like you do with your food now and your groceries.
Because you can't go outside?
Yeah, 'cause you can't go outside anymore. But like, so something me and a friend of mine used to do is we used to find like 1-star Netflix movies too, and like those fall in line with each other. Like terrible CGI, just terrible plots that don't make any fucking sense.
A lot of Tyler lore that explains a lot of things today.
Yeah.
But so like the CGI is not that good in Sweet Home. It's nothing to write home about.
I was wondering where we're getting to Sweet Home with this.
But it's just interesting. Like the monsters in it are cool. The characters are a little kooky. You have a little bit of human problems in it. I hate humans and my monster shit. Like just give me more monster problems. Like if The Walking Dead was all about them just fighting zombies for 8 seasons straight, I would be totally okay with that.
Yeah, but
like
then I don't think
give me no humans versus human shit. I don't give 0 fucks about other humans.
That's kind of why I never watched Walking Dead. It's like, oh, they're gonna have to run into some other humans and then they fight each other and then they.
You say that, But when Attack on Titan became that, you suddenly got super in. So it's not always.
It's different when I do it.
It's different when I do it.
Well, that's the compelling narrative.
Walking Dead is not.
The thing about Attack on Titans is like how strong Titans are, though. It's a little different.
They're not little like I always say this. I think a zombie apocalypse would be so easy to handle. Like it'd be no problem.
Willer, I think we've proved that it's not.
Yeah.
Like I think 2020 highly disproved that.
Speaking of zombie apocalypses and books, a really good zombie apocalypse book is actually World War Z.
I've heard that, yeah.
That's on my to-read list.
Yeah, that book is actually 100% worth a read. That is, it's way different than any other medium that tells that story, and it's post the apocalypse after the world has overcome it, and basically a journalist is going place to place, just kind of like hearing people's stories and learning about like what they did during that time and how they got there. And it sets up the narrative in a very chronological order, but like every chapter is like a different story entirely and different from it. And it's a really cool, like, just piece of fiction.
Like
I really
The
like
Last
it.
of Us also is a post-apocalypse, so I do like those.
Is it? I thought it happened like during the apocalypse.
No,
like
the Last of Us is 20 years after it started, and it's pretty managed. Like there's some zones you can't enter, but like society is there.
I'm sitting here, y'all are reminding me about something about Sweet Home. Like I didn't even say the premise.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like we have a main character. We don't know what happened to him. He's typical I don't know if he's I think they're in Korea.
It's a Korean webcomic. Like
so like I want to say they're Korean, but I don't want to be racist, but I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
And he is about to commit suicide at the very beginning, and then like there's some symptoms of the pandemic going on. It's very like zombie movie-esque where there's some shit going on in the background as we're following our main character. But wait, what?
No, sorry. I was signing PLR.
Man.
And we he's just kind of like his life is shit, but so are some other people, and we follow like a bunch of like weird characters that are nice and interesting. They are like anime characters a little bit, but it's like real life because I guess it is based off a webtoon, so it's silly.
Seems faithful.
I really like the monster design, and I really like how some of the acting of like the neutral characters that are like the supporting cast, I would say, are really extreme, and they're over the top, and it just keeps the story going, I guess, in some form of interest. The monsters are really cool, and the way they have to fight them.
I was trying to say earlier before, I do want to do Sweet Home, but I'm gonna do it in the comic book, and then we can talk about it and we can see if it's very different.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. I would see it. I'll read the first
Pact
chapter.
and Pale, I want to audiobook the Stormlight Archives, which is supposed to be
Yes.
really good.
I'm gonna audiobook that too because I've heard it's really goddamn good.
Is that another Wild Bow thing?
It is not.
No, that's an actual book series.
It's my first not Wild Bow audiobook I'll be doing.
Stormlight Archive.
But Pact's got to come first because Pact's amazing. But I'm
Pact's
about
my
to catch.
shit.
How long Stormlight Archives is it? 4 or 5? Like
I think they're on their 5th or something. Or
Okay.
I don't know. Anyways, I think that's been a podcast, boys.
it was the 2-hour one.
Thanks for tuning in.
It
It was
long.
a long one.
It was an hour 30, so no, not at all. But
Okay.
yeah,
It's not hot.
we're just better at it. We started at like 7:30. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Goodbye,
Oh, that's right.
everyone.
We had that game. Bye.
Bye.